Right now, somewhere in the world, thousands of people are lying awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, convinced something is wrong with them. They'll call it insomnia. They'll blame stress, or caffeine, or their phone. But what if none of that is the real answer? What if waking up in the middle of the night isn't a malfunction at all, but something ancient buried deep inside your biology? Something every single one of your ancestors experienced every single night for hundreds of thousands of years. To understand what's happening in your body at 3 a.m., we have to go back to a time before electric light, before candles, before anyone had ever seen a clock. For over 300,000 years, humans didn't sleep the way we do now. They didn't collapse into one unbroken 8-hour block. Instead, they slept in 2 separate chunks, with a strange window of quiet wakefulness in between. This wasn't rare. It wasn't a disorder. It was universal. And the evidence for it was hiding in plain sight for centuries, buried in old documents that historians kept misreading. In 2001, a historian named Roger Ekirch spent 16 years combing through diaries, court records, and medical texts from before the industrial age. He found the same phrase again and again: first sleep and second sleep. People described going to bed shortly after dark, sleeping for roughly 4 hours, waking up, staying awake for an hour or two in the dead of night, and then falling back asleep until morning. For a long time, translators assumed this was a mistake, because nobody sleeps like that anymore. But it wasn't a mistake. It was the default setting of the human body. So what happens physically during that gap? In 1992, a psychiatrist named Thomas Ware ran an experiment that accidentally proved this ancient pattern was still hiding inside modern humans. He took a group of volunteers and cut out all artificial light for a month, giving them 14 hours of darkness a night, roughly what our ancestors experienced before fire extended the evening. Within weeks, without anyone instructing them, every participant fell into the exact same rhythm: 4 hours of sleep, a stretch of calm wakefulness, then 4 more hours of sleep. Nobody taught them this. Their bodies simply remembered. Here's the part that should change how you think about your own sleepless nights. Vare measured hormone levels during that waking window, and what he found wasn't stress or anxiety. It was the opposite. Participants showed elevated prolactin, the same hormone your brain releases during deep meditation. They described the state as calm, peaceful, almost dreamlike. Their minds were awake, but their nervous systems were as relaxed as they'd be during rest. This wasn't a broken night. It was a third state of consciousness, distinct from being asleep, and distinct from being awake. One that modern humans almost never get to experience anymore. So what did people actually do with that time, back when this was normal? Historical records describe it in surprising detail. People used the middle of the night window to reflect on dreams while they were still fresh, since dream interpretation was taken seriously long before psychology existed as a science. Others got up quietly to check on animals, tend a fire, or sit with their thoughts in the dark. A doctor's manual from the 1500s advised that the calmest, clearest thinking of the entire day happened during this exact window, because the mind was undistracted and the world outside was still. Some records even describe couples using this time for intimacy, believing children conceived during this calm hour would be born calmer themselves. Whether or not that part was true, the pattern makes sense biologically. This wasn't dead time. It was some of the most mentally clear time humans had. Then artificial light arrived, and the whole system collapsed. Street lamps in the 1600s made night less frightening. Gas lighting in the 1800s pushed bedtimes later. Then, in 1879, Thomas Edison's light bulb reached homes, and within a couple of generations, humanity abandoned a sleep pattern that had lasted 300,000 years. We compressed two sleep phases into one. We erased the calm window in between. And when our bodies, still running on ancient programming, try to bring that window back, we panic and call it a sleep disorder. This matters more than it sounds like, because modern light exposure doesn't just shift your bedtime, it actively fights your biology. The average person today is exposed to artificial light for 7 to 8 hours after sunset, and blue light from screens is especially disruptive. It suppresses melatonin, the hormone that tells your brain it's nighttime. Your eyes can't tell the difference between a bright screen and the sun. So at 11 p.m., while you're scrolling in bed, your brain is quietly convinced it's still daytime, delaying melatonin release and fragmenting a sleep cycle that took millions of years to evolve. Researchers have found that people who spend just 1 week camping with zero artificial light have their melatonin cycles reset by nearly 2 hours, meaning their bodies start producing it right at sunset again, exactly like our ancestors. It only takes 7 days for 300,000 years of programming to switch back on. So the next time you wake up at 3 a.m., with your mind unusually clear, calm, maybe even reflective, consider a different explanation than insomnia. Your ancestors were awake at this exact hour for thousands of generations. They weren't panicking about needing to fall back asleep in the next 10 minutes. They were lying in the dark, thinking, listening, existing in a state your body still remembers how to enter, even if your modern life never gives it the chance. What if the anxiety isn't the natural part? What if the natural part is the stillness, and the anxiety is just what happens when you fight a rhythm your body was never designed to give up? For most of human history, waking in the night wasn't something to fix. It was simply part of being human. We just forgot.